Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are looking at another budget deck tech, and this time it is Tivit, Seller of Secrets. I'm calling this deck Poor Life Choices because it is very focused on the vote mechanic. Alright, so first of all, he is a flying ward 3, and whenever he enters the battlefield or does combat damage, everyone votes for either evidence, which means you make a clue token, or bribery, which means you make a treasure token. His second ability is you get an extra vote. So every time he enters, you get an extra vote, and then everyone votes for what you get. So if you want to get treasure, no problem, you're going to get 2 treasures every time he attacks, or sorry, every time he deals combat damage, or he enters the battlefield. You want to do both ideally on every turn. Anyway, yeah, there you go. I think it's a very interesting commander. We are doing another Esper one here. Our last one was actually on Esper, so I'm going to have to do Gruel next, I think, to balance it out. Anyway, he has 23 cents, so real budget. The whole deck altogether at the moment costs $43.57. This changes very quickly. The first one I did is up, I think, over $10. I did one in Ohabi Calaria, and that is, it's already gained over $10, which is kind of frustrating, but oh well. Anyway, the design objective is to make the most use of the vote mechanic as possible and his token creation. So yeah, the vote mechanic is used a lot in this deck, I think more to like mess with the other players and control the gameplay. The clue token, all of that is used as more of a value engine there. So that's kind of what this deck does. Again, this is determined using the TCG market player or market price, and they are not a sponsor. I'm always making sure to say that they are not a sponsor. Finally, you can find this deck on moxfield.com and you can order it from there. Again, use the TCG player, it is the cheapest one. Okay, once again, this is a vote deck. Vote is an underutilized but very effective mechanic, so just in case you haven't encountered this before, it is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to play the card, and then everyone takes turns voting. Okay? There are secret votes, and most votes are open, though. So you're going to have 2 votes every time because of his ability, and you have other things in this deck that can give you more votes or allow you to control everyone's vote. So yeah, that gets very valuable. And yeah, he has a lot of functionality with tokens to make use of as well. We have a whole bunch of value engines for the tokens in this deck. A lot of the win cons are tied to the token creation. Remember, every time he does combat damage or he enters the battlefield, again, including Flicker, we got lots of Flicker, he's making 5, right? There's 2 from you and 3 from every other player. So that's 5 token artifacts every time he triggers this. It's going to get pretty easy to be making 10 every time, every turn. You should be able to make 10 at least, but anyway. That's a lot. That's a lot. An important strategy point is something I kind of brought up already. You want to maximize his attack and ETB triggers, right? Every turn, we got lots of evasion. You want to get an attack in with him and do combat damage, and you want to flicker him. Probably after attacking, right? In your second main, you want to do the flicker. And yeah, when he comes back in, and when he does combat damage, again, he's creating 5 artifact tokens every time. Alright, so even getting more than what we've already listed, the kind of 1 flicker, flickering twice in a turn is possible with this deck, and then he'd make 15 tokens in a turn. Just really gets out of control fast. Okay, the real downside for this guy, and this is usually like something I say automatic no to, is the high casting cost, right? He's 3 and Esper, so that's 6 converted mana costs altogether. 3 white, blue, black. That is very steep, okay? Usually I would just automatically say no to that, but anyway. Remember, the kind of what sets this off is, remember, you're going to be able to say bribery twice. You can make tokens that are going to give you the mana back, basically. So his casting cost is 6, and right as soon as he enters the battlefield, you're going to make you can make 2 treasure tokens. So his casting cost is more like 4, kinda. But anyway, and he can keep making mana as well. So he almost is like a mana dork, but not quite. A mana dork with extra steps, maybe. But anyway, he also has ward 3. Word is flawed, but better than nothing. We do have a whole section of this video dedicated just to like keeping him alive, right? You don't want to keep having to recast him very quickly. That would not be worthwhile, I think. So yeah, a lot of removal evasion is what I mean to say. But anyway. High synergy cards. First of all, illusion of choice. This is the, you choose how each player votes and draw a card. Again, having like a cantrip is always nice. It is a card that replaces itself, and you're going to be voting for everyone that turn. All right, so his attack, if you flicker him, you want to do this when you do have flicker and attack, and ideally a vote card to cast, because then you're just deciding how everything happens that turn. That's really amazing. Next up is Grudge Keeper, which is almost like the opposite of Illusion of Choice. Whenever players finish voting, each opponent who voted for a choice you didn't vote for loses 2 life. Again, this is a great kind of almost harassment tactic. It's like, if you want treasure, you're gonna, flicker them, say bribery twice, and then if they don't choose bribery and give you what you want, they're going to take 2 damage, right? And you can do this twice per turn, so this could very easily do 4 damage unless they vote the way you want them to every turn. Marinus Calgar? I can't say some things, I don't know. Anyway, what really stands out about him is whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Okay, so it does specify 1 or more, right? So when Tivit's ability triggers, you're going to draw 1 card. He does make 5 tokens, you're not drawing 5 cards. That would be insane, but like, you're getting 1, which is actually pretty good, considering you can do this probably twice per turn at minimum. And you're going to have lots of other ways to make tokens. So yeah, you can kind of keep setting this off pretty easily, and that's almost, I think it's almost your card draw sorted. He can also make some tokens. So if you really want to, you can. It's 6 mana to create 2 2/2s though. So very pricey ones, but it might be worthwhile. You never know. Even for if you've got a lot of the auto damage things set up, you can make those and automatically do damage, as what I picture at least. You draw a card and do damage, I guess, so that's nice. Academy Manufactor. Okay, this I think is one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive card in the deck. A friend of mine took a look at this deck list, and this was like the top of his list that he said, take this out. It's too expensive. Remember, combined with his ETB and attack triggers, can create 15 tokens per activation. Okay? So what this does is, anytime you make a treasure, a food, or a clue, it makes all 3. So he's going to make 5. When he triggers, that makes 15. In a turn, making 30 is very possible. And if you've got something like Mirkwood Bats, where whenever a token enters the battlefield, you're going to do damage, you can do 30 damage just for like, attacking once, basically. Attacking once and using a flicker ability, which you might have automatically set up. So, oh boy, 30 damage is a lot to just like pump out on a turn for like not really doing anything. You're not casting a spell, you're not, anyway. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Mechanized production. This is one of our win cons here. So at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Alright, so you probably want to cast this on like a mana rock or something, right? That would probably be the most worthwhile thing. And it does. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. Again, if you have 8 clue tokens or you have 8 treasure tokens, you win. Game over. Done. Once again, very, very easy to do with this deck, right? Even in 3 turns, accidentally creating 8 of the same thing is very likely, right? Or in 3 turns. In 2 turns, 3 activations. In 3 activations, you can probably do that. If you got something like Illusion of Choice on the battlefield, or active, it's not on the battlefield, it's an instant, but if it's active, then you probably only need 2, right? You can do it in 2. You're going to make 10 in 2 activations, so yeah. That could very easily just be like a win out of nowhere. You win the game. Cast this, Illusion of Choice, attack once, flicker him. Game over. Okay, part 2, deck objectives. Alright. Your 3 main objectives are to get your token engine set up, get your flicker engine set up, and then keep him alive, right? These are the 3 most important things. We have 3 sneaky ways to win, so that's something we can do later. The token engine, alright, there's 2 main things here, is your auto damage and your other token effects, okay? Your auto damage is probably number 1, like that's going to do so much just because you're creating so many tokens. It's going to like really tilt the game in your favor pretty hard. And the other effects, getting bonuses just for like using the resources you have, it's just a lot of almost mean synergy, I think. So for auto damage, we have Mirkwood Bats, which I mentioned before. So whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. Again, creating or sacrificing. So again, if you're doing the double trigger thing, everyone else is losing 10 life every turn just from that. Not even doing anything like actually not counting the combat damage, not counting like anything else that might be going on. They're ticking down very fast, right? Kambal Profiteering Mayor. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I want to point this one out because it does specify 1 or more. This triggers once, right? Every time his ability goes off, he makes 5 tokens. You get 1 life, and all of your opponents take 1 damage. Doesn't matter how many tokens you make at once. This is 1, but anyway, what's kind of nice is that whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, for each of them, create a tap token that's a copy of it. And so yeah, you're gonna make your 5 tokens from him entering the battlefield, and Kambal will make 5 copies of those tokens and activate his ability. So yeah, if him and Mirkwood Bats are on the battlefield, you're going to have your 2 triggers from attacking, flickering, and then he's going to make copies that are token artifacts also of all of those things. So that's going to be 15 damage from Mirkwood Bats, and then he'll trigger twice. So he'll take everyone else is going to take 2 damage from his 2 activations, so that's 17 damage in a turn just for attacking once. Basically, all you've done is attack once, and you're going to have flicker effects that kind of automatically go off. So very, very scary. And finally, Agent of the Iron Throne. commander creatures you own have, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, each opponent loses 1 life. Mirkwood Bats and this both also trigger when when these artifacts you're creating go to the graveyard. You are going to have a way to mass sacrifice them, so you can build up a whole bunch and just kill them all at once, and then probably game over. I'd be surprised if it isn't game over, frankly. Anywho, there are many more of these type of effects in the deck, so yeah, whole bunch of synergy there. Other effects with tokens: Felice, Reverend, Medium. Remember, you are creating a whole bunch of tokens, right? Even if it's just the 2 activations of Tivit, that's 10. At the beginning of each end step, create X11 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you created. Tokens, not token creatures. When I first read that, I thought token creatures. I'm really bad for reading the card and then making it do something not as impressive. So yeah, if you do have his combat damage and then flicker, that's 10, right? You're making 10 1/1 flying white spirits. Really not impressive in that they're 1/1s, but as blockers go, flying blockers that you can just keep pumping out all day and have evasion, so if you do want to use them aggressively, they are going to be able to do that pretty well. Anywho, Junk Winder. This is another one I wanted to kind of have a little gab about. It has affinity for artifacts. That's very important because CMC-wise, mana-wise, this is the most expensive by far. Okay, this is 7. Nothing else in the deck is 7 mana costs. But you're never going to pay 7. Never ever pay 7 for him. Affinity for artifacts does include tokens. So that means for every artifact you have, you reduce the cost by 1. You don't have to tap the artifact or anything like that. Just having it on the battlefield, good enough. So even if you activate him Tivit once, you're going to have 5. So you should pay 2. You should never pay more than just the 2 blue for this guy. He's a 5/6 basically for 2 blue in this deck. And whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. You could just start mass tapping down everything your opponents have. They're going to need, again, if you're making the 10 tokens, they're going to need 10 blockers to be able to keep their defenses up. Otherwise, you're shutting them down and they stay down for a full turn, right? They don't untap during the next untap step. So you're just like basically making a road straight to their player anyway. An Inspiring Sanctuary. Non-artifact spells you cast have improvise. Okay? So what that means is you can tap any artifact and use that as basically like a mana dork. It makes a colorless mana to cast any non-artifact spell. So your instant sorceries, creatures, enchantments, all of that, just start like throwing them down. This is like just insane synergy with him because once again, if you're making the 10 tokens, that's 10 colorless mana you're making for casting spells, basically per turn with this. Oh, value. Oh, value. Excuse me? And you get your Flicker engine set up is the next thing. Again, there's kind of 2 main ways I look at this. There's the instants and sorceries, and there's the permanents that grant Flicker. Okay? So, first of all, the instants and sorceries. There are many more of these. These are kind of the 3 I want to note. Disorder in the Court, I want to point out, for 2 reasons. You can exile creatures and then return them to the battlefield at the end. At the end of the controller's next end step. Yeah, their owner's next end step, so that's an important thing to point out. So if you use this on your turn to take all of someone else's stuff and move it out of the way, basically, you flicker it, they don't get it back until the end of their turn. So yeah, they're not going to have access to that during their turn. And also equal to the X creatures, you do have to pay X, which maybe some people don't like. But yeah, you investigate X times also. So you can use this to save your own things. So this is definitely something where you can use it to like take Tivit off the battlefield and save him from like any kind of board wipe or targeted removal. I would want to use this defensively, but it's also a great finisher, so there's a lot of flexibility there. Anyway, and you investigate X times, so however many creatures that you've exiled into or flickered basically, you make that many clue tokens as well. Oh boy. And next up, another round. This I thought was going to go way up in value. This was on my list of like great budget cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I couldn't remember what it's called, but anyway. Yeah, exile any number of creatures you control and then return them to the battlefield under their owner's control. Okay. You are exiling any number once, right? The X cost is not for like the number of creatures or anything like that. The X cost is how many times you repeat that. This is why this is crazy with Tivit, because remember, every time he enters the battlefield, you're going to make 5 tokens and you get to choose 2 of them. You can choose treasure. Okay, so again, it's XX 2 and a white. So if you pay 2, you're going to flicker them 1 extra time. And then if you pay 4, you're going to flicker them 2 extra times. When you flicker them 2 extra times, his ability goes off twice, so you can make 4 treasure tokens. Basically, you're spending 4 mana, or 4 extra mana, and you're flickering him 3 times now, right? The first one is built into the spell cost, and then each +2 you put on after that repeats, okay? So if you cast this and include Tivit in it, he's going to trigger multiple times. This could, again, with Mirkwood Bats, this is like a win con. I just realized this is a win con with Mirkwood Bats. I should have put that on my win con list. Anyway, Ephemerate. Exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. I would mostly use this to keep Tivit alive, right? If you draw this card, wait until there's like a board wipe or someone tries to use targeted removal on Tivit, which would be hilarious because he has board 3, so they're going to pay 3 extra mana to be able to use the board or to be able to use the targeted removal, and then you're just going to like move them out of the way. So it's just like sinking so much mana into trying to kill one creature, and the creature just like disappears and reappears. Anyway, yeah, there are many more, but those are the ones I want to point out. Flicker permanents, Soul Herder is my number 1 here. Remember, whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 on him. So he's going to get a lot of +1/+1 counters in this deck. That's always great. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you controlled and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this is one of your guaranteed exile and return things, okay? Every turn, at the end of the turn, he's going to exile and return something, okay? And the Eternal Wanderer. I actually really like this Planeswalker. I'm usually not a fan of Planeswalkers, not a flan. But anyway. So its +1 is exile up to 1 target creature, artifact, or a creature. Return the card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next player's end step, or of the player's next end step. So yeah, oh boy, that's actually very good. And then we've got Abuelo, Ancestral Echo, Flying Ward 2, and you do have to pay a mana cost here, but it's actually kind of nice because it's activated, right? Remember, it costs 3 for you to exile something, and it's going to return it to the battlefield at the end Next end step, not the controller's end step, the next end step. This is also kind of dangerous, and what I wanted to talk about is like when not to do this. So if you've got something where they can end the turn immediately, like what is the splitter of seconds card? I forget what it's called, but yeah. If they could just be like, okay, turn's over now before the end step, don't do that, because you'll exile your commander and you'll be waiting for him to come back and they just end the turn. So if the end step never comes, your commander just stays out. You do not get to return your commander to the command zone in that case. It's only when the commander changes zones you can move him to the command zone, right? If you exile him and then they cut it off and he is just stuck in exile, you don't get to like just move him back to the command zone. He's just out of the game at that point. So very, very dangerous. Something to keep in mind if you are going to do that, but it's a great trick. Basically, once he's on the battlefield, you can like save your commander at any time. And once again, once he comes back in, he's making all those tokens again. So you can do the like, you're paying 3, but you can make 2 treasures if you want to. So it kind of only costs 1, and it's like an effect that is essentially a counter spell. You can counter spells, you can counter board wipes, you can counter, or not really counter, but you can like survive them, right? So that is, yeah, that is pretty incredible. Anywho, yeah. Keep him alive. Okay, I've got 4 kind of things I want to talk about here. Counter spells. There's lots and lots of counter spells in this. Giving him indestructible is always nice. Flicker effects I've already talked about. Selective board wipes. This is something that's very important in this deck, and that's selective board wipes. Bane's Contingency. I think it's the best counter spell for Commander. Anyway, counter target spell. If that spell targets a commander you control, instead counter that spell, scry 2, and then draw a card. Once again, you can just use to counter any spell straight up. So if there's a board wipe and you want to stop it, this can do that. Ideally, it's something that only targets your commander, and then you get all the bonus effects. But I think one reason this is so low in value is that people are misreading it as the effect has to target your commander. It does not. This can be used as a counter to any spell, right? Bastion Protector. Here's another one where I look at it and I'm like, why is this under $1? Why? Anyway, commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and indestructible. What? Remember, your commander starts out as a 6/6, so giving him +2/+2 and indestructible. Flying Word 3, indestructible, +2/+2. Ay. Anyway, once again, we're looking at Abuelo, and yeah, using him to keep your commander alive. The other thing I wanted to point out about him is that this is an ability that does not require tapping, right? You can do this multiple times. You can do it one turn, and then the next turn do it again, then next turn do it again. He doesn't come back until your end step, so you can't really do it multiple times in one turn. Yeah, but you can do it like 4 times in a round, basically. So yeah, he can just keep doing that, and you can just keep making it into a value engine, basically. If you've got Mirkwood bats on the battlefield, just keep doing it every turn. Make him pay, like, you're taking 5 life away every time Mirkwood bats is there, and then yeah, you can even like sack them later and do all that damage all over again, and that would probably be a finisher. But anyway, selective board wipes. Time wipe. Return target a creature you control to its owner's hand. Destroy all creatures. Again, remember you have to pay the extra cost when it goes back to the command zone. If you're just returning him to hand and then casting him again, there's no extra cost for casting from your hand. Okay? So that's one way to keep him alive, or not keep him alive. Keep him from going to your graveyard. Stick together. He is a rogue. So that's one very important thing. Each player chooses a party from among creatures they control, then sacrifices the rest. Forcing people to sacrifice creatures is so much better than destroy. Indestructible creatures, this doesn't care about indestructible, right? Completely ignores it. They sacrifice everything. Other players might have something in a party. Again, a party is a cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard. So he's your rogue, right? Anyway, I'm pretty sure there's definitely a warrior. I believe a cleric, but anyway, you could get a lot more value out of this than your opponents are going to. That's the main point, right? Any artifact or any token creatures are probably just going to get wiped out, or at least most of them will, and that's what's important. Anyway, last one, Promise of Loyalty. Each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control and sacrifices the rest. Each of those creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control for as long as it has a vow counter on it. I love this because this is like, you do let them keep one thing each, but that one thing can no longer hurt you. They can only attack each other with that. I think that's really great, especially in this deck, where it's like, the theme is just forcing them to make bad choices, so this fits very nicely. Okay, part 3, combos and tactics. We're talking about getting the most value out of the deck, basically. Oh, please hit like and subscribe, it really does help a lot. And alright, so first our mana combo. This is something I'm relying on more and more on decks, I think. Sun Titan, and then Sun Titan, remember, he can, every time he enters or attacks, he's going to bring something with mana value 3 or less from the battle or from the graveyard back to the battlefield. Okay. It does not include it does not exclude anything really. So again, a target permanent card. Mana value is the only thing he really cares about. So things like Escape Tunnel, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, or Obscure Storefront, you can pull them all out of the graveyard, sacrifice them, and send them straight back, right? And when you sacrifice them, you take a basic land, you put it into the battlefield tapped. So basically you're getting this ramp. You just can ramp like crazy. In this deck, you got all these flicker effects, so if you keep flickering him, especially if you got something Obscure Storefront where it just sacrifices itself and goes straight back to the battle, or to the graveyard, you can just keep pulling it out and putting it back, right? And with something like Obuelo, where you pay 3 and you can exile and then return to the battlefield on the next end step, then you can just use him to ramp over and over and over, right? It does cost 3 mana, but you can potentially just like keep pulling basic lands out of your deck over and over and over. And with Obscure Storefront, it also gains you 1 life every turn, which is, or every time you do it, which is, you know, okay, sure, why not? 1 life. Anyway. Alright, so next one up, we've got a damage combo, Nissa of Traken and Marionette Master. Alright, Nissa of Traken, whenever she attacks, you can sacrifice X artifacts. Then, when you do that, you can tap X number of creatures, then draw X cards. Tapping X creatures and drawing X cards is nice, definitely, but that's not the important part. What we want is the first part. When she attacks, sacrifice X artifacts, okay? You don't have to do the same number of creatures, like if you only have 5 creatures, but you have like 20 artifacts tokens, you can sacrifice all 20, right? It doesn't check to see that you actually have the same number of creatures or anything. But anyway, as soon as you do that, Marionette Master is going to deal damage for each artifact entering the graveyard, right? And it is equal to her power, and you might think, oh, it's only 1/3, there's 1 damage each time. It's kind of like a meh thing, but actually she has Fabricate 3. So when she enters the battlefield, you're going to give her probably +3/+3, so she can be a 4/6, so you can do 4 damage every time. So if you're sacrificing, even with, again, 20, which is not a lot with this deck, that's 4 activations of Tivit. you can have 20 artifact tokens. Sacrifice those 20, and she is going to do 60 damage. All right, 60 damage just for things entering the battlefield. Again, it's when Nissa attacks, right? So the easiest thing to do is probably take out the player she's attacking so that they can't block and kill her. So you can keep doing this, which isn't nice, but it works. Player removal is the best removal. Anyway, once again, Nissa of Kraken and Senator Peacock. If what you're sacrificing is clues, why I want to bring this up is because it doesn't matter, right? How you sacrifice it, whether it's activating the clue or sacrificing it just to Nissa, that's sacrificing the clue either way. All right, Nissa doesn't say, or sorry, Senator Peacock doesn't say when you activate the clue token's ability. It says when you sacrifice the clue token. How you sacrifice it doesn't matter. Whenever you do, a target creature can't be blocked this turn, all right? So you can make all of your creatures unblockable very easily. This is especially good with Tivit because you do want him always doing damage, right? So sacrifice a clue, give Tivit unblockable, and then Tivit's going to make more clue tokens. So you can just keep doing it over and over and over, and probably doing a whole bunch of extra damage from the tokens entering the battlefield and then going to the graveyard. There's going to be even more damage. But yeah, this just gets ugly very quick. Star vote cards. All right, capital punishment. Each player votes. Remember, you get 2 votes. All right. So if you want them discarding, you can choose taxes twice. If you want them sacrificing creatures, you can choose death twice. All right. So yeah, each opponent chooses either death or taxes. Again, death, all your opponents, not you, sacrifice a creature. Taxes, all your opponents, not you, discards a card. This is expensive at 6 mana, but it does so much, and it's just like the worst choice possible, right? I think it's also going to cause a lot of conflict between your opponents, because like you'll probably have an opponent that has like no cards in hand, so they're going to be like, yeah, taxes because it doesn't affect me, and then another opponent might have no creatures, so they're like, oh, I'll choose death because that doesn't affect me. And then they get mad at each other, so that's always fun. Trap the Trespassers is a very important one. One of the downsides of having a commander with a high casting cost is that you're going to have to wait a bit longer to get him into the battlefield. This buys time. So each player secretly votes for a creature that you don't control. Then those votes are revealed. For each creature, put one with 1 or more votes, put that many stun counters on it, and tap it. Okay? So any creature that gets chosen is getting tapped, and then a stun counter, so they don't untap during the next untap phase. This is great if you can get everyone to kind of like politic and team up on maybe, hopefully, someone else's arch enemy at the time when you cast this. Especially if it's before your commander comes out. It's probably going to be someone else. That's the main problem, and then you can like really tap them down and get them attacked a lot. Custody Squire. Again, this will bring things back to your hand from the graveyard. Graveyard recursion, great thing to have. Anyway, when it enters the battlefield, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each with the most votes, or tied for the most votes. So they can't like all choose a different thing, and then say, "Oh, none of us agreed. None of them won the vote, so you get nothing." If they all choose something different, you get all of those things. Really, what they should want to do is all choose, all choose the same thing you chose, so that you only get the one thing. But again, if you have illusion of choice, before you flicker this or activate this or cast this, whatever it may be, you can just say, oh, I'm choosing 5 different things, voting for one of each, and then put all 5 back into your hand. 5 cards coming back to your hand. That's crazy good. Anyway, yeah. This is one of my top flicker targets. This and Sun Titan are the 2 number 1 flicker targets. it's just going to be pulling everything out of your graveyard. It's going to be pretty funny, I think. Evasion. Very important in this deck, evasion. Alright, so we got Whirler Rogue. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, including clues and treasures, right? Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Very easy to make him unblockable, and Tivit unblockable, and then he attacks and does damage and makes more tokens that you can use to make him unblockable. So you're kind of just like, the value engine is very clear. And we already talked about Senator Peacock. Again, sacrifice a clue, make him unblockable, or anything else unblockable. Sacrifice multiple clues at the same time, make everything unblockable. And finally, Junkwinder. Tapping down someone else's board can actually be more effective than making your own creatures unblockable. Tapping down someone's board, it taps them down and they can't untap them during the next untap phase, right? They basically have a stun counter on them. That lets everyone attack them freely, right? All the other opponents can just gang up on this person very easily. So again, if someone else is ahead, this is a great catch-up thing. And if you want to make someone else an easy target so that maybe you don't get as much heat, you can make them be like, no, it's super easy to attack this guy right now. Don't attack me. And a lot of people go for that. So looking specifically at clues, treasures, I feel like most people are not going to want to give you treasures because that makes mana. Clues, you have to pay 3 mana and then sacrifice it just to get 1 card draw. I feel like most people are going to be like, yeah, between the two, it's I don't want you to have either one, but the treasure is the much worse thing to keep giving you, right? Alright, so we have, when she, Piper Wright, whenever she deals combat damage to a player, investigate that many times. And whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Again, you can mass sacrifice all those clues, and this would still work. You can just pile on the +1/+1s on whatever you want. Possibly your commander. And thorough investigation, whenever you attack investigate, that's okay. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, venture into the dungeon. Okay, venture into the dungeon is not a popular mechanic, and rightfully so. But if it's something you're just getting extra, you know, it's an added bonus. I think as an added bonus, it's a great mechanic to have, just for free, a free like bonus effect. That's fantastic, right? I think you can find a lot of things that, especially with this, you can, sacrifice multiple clues and like complete a whole dungeon probably. So this would run through dungeons and get a lot of bonus effects very, very quickly. Anyway, 500-Year Diary. Tap to add a blue for each clue you control. Oh, especially if you can like improvise, use the clues to improvise as well. You're making it to kind of like 2 different kinds of mana dork on the clue, which isn't even supposed to make mana. I love it because it's evil. And then you can sacrifice it to draw a card. You probably should never really need card draw, but it's an option that's there, you know? Yeah, having options is good. Token artifact values, okay? You want to get lots and lots of things, value from your token artifacts. Shimmer Dragon, this used to be like a $7 card, and it went down to like 50 cents. Why? Because I have it. Anywho, tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, draw a card. Again, you don't have to, with this, it's great because you don't have to actually sacrifice your clues. You can just like tap them and get the reward. So you don't have to pay the mana, you don't have to sacrifice them, you can just keep collecting the reward from it. You can build up a whole bunch, and then once you have, you know, like Marionette Master or something like, or Mirkwood Bats on the battlefield, sacrifice them all with like Nessa or something like that, and then you're just like doing a whole you can probably just win the game off of that. Forensic Gadgeteer, this one's very nice, mostly because, again, there's the artifact spell, Investigate, sure. But all of your artifact abilities cost one less, right? It's making it cheaper to activate those clue tokens, so if you are not doing the mass sacrifice thing, if you do need to use the mana to do it, it makes it actually pretty useful, right? Or pretty, the value is there, I mean, yeah. Anyway, Contraband Kingpin, and whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. So again, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, alright? So he's going to trigger 5 times from Tivit's ability. It doesn't say 1 or more. This is 5 different activations, so you can scry 1 5 times every time you use your commander's ability. Whew, whew, whew. That's a lot of card sorting, right? Win cons 1 and 2. Again, mechanized production. Talked about this already. Just get 10 of anything at the beginning of next end step. You just automatically win. Nissa Traken and Marionette Master. Not to mention Nissa Traken and Mirkwood Bats, or Nissa Traken and really anything that does damage for it entering the battlefield. Or entering the graveyard, not battlefield. Yeah. You can turn that into just a whole boatload of damage very quickly. Surprised you lose. Okay, this is one that I really like. Once again, we do have multiple evasion sources, right? You can make your commander unblockable or just tap down someone else's board very, very easily. And what you want to do is Duelist Heritage, giving him double strike, and then, yeah, even Merchant of Truth, giving your clues Exalted, so that you can tap them to give your creature that's attacking alone +1/+1. He's a 6/6 already, right? So if you give him 5, if you can tap 5 clue tokens while she's on the battlefield, give him that +5/+5 with double strike. That's 22 damage. That's game over already, right? Also, we have things like Cranial Plating. I really love this one. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. That does include all your tokens and clues. So, and it has Attach, right? Attach is much better than Equip because Attach is an instant speed. So you can attack, and they might think, oh, okay, no big deal. And then you're like, 2 black mana, boom. All of a sudden, yeah. Especially if he has double strike. Even if he doesn't have double strike, you might be in commander damage range. So yeah. It again, just crazy, crazy, crazy with this deck. Having 15 tokens on the battlefield, not hard. And that's all you'd really need to, even without double strike, for your commander to be like one-shotting opponents and just winning the game outright on that. Anywho, this has been Tivit. Please check the link in the description if you want to buy the deck. It is on Moxfield. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and take it easy.